Welcome to Next. With Bernie Barter.
Lo-Fi by Nova Cascade to open up our podcast this week. Welcome to Deep Friday on Next, and happy to have you with us. Bernie here with you for the next little while with some great chat and music with Dave Hilborn and Dave Fick from progressive alternative band Nova Cascade. Formed in May of 2017, musicians from 3 different continents, UK, Italy, and the US, all combining their talents together. I'd like to welcome you both to our podcast this week and appreciate you taking time out for our listeners so they can get to know you a little bit better.
Hi there, this is Dave Hilborn from Nova Cascade, and I'm delighted to be here today with you, Bernie. Thanks for having us.
And this is Dave Fick, also from Nova Cascade. It's nice to be here.
It's a big pleasure to have both of you with me this week. This is the debut album for Nova Cascade, and this first question I'll direct at you first, Dave Hilborn. I understand that personally you've been in the business for about 30 years or so some real longevity and experience compiled in that time. And for those people that aren't familiar with you but just learning about Nova Cascade, can you both give our listeners a bit of info about the project?
Yeah, I've been around in the music business for about 30 years. I started writing music in about 1987. I started off on acoustic guitar and then I gravitated towards the piano. I formed a few bands, but I really didn't make any massive effort to play live until probably about 1990 when I formed a band called Vital Signs. We managed to put out a vinyl single called Wrapped in Silver, which did reasonably well for its time. We then went our separate ways, and I got much more interested in the orchestral, expansive side of prog. So my pieces sort of strayed away from more pop-orientated sounding music into sort of more, the 5-6 minute, 7 minute, standard prog epic. After that, I wrote an opera called The Masque of the Red Death, which is based on the short story by Edgar Allan Poe. My initial plan was to stage it, but I simply ran out of money. The staging costs for a big, elaborate production like that, they're one thing in your head and, 1,000 other things when it actually comes to the reality of trying to put it together. So unfortunately I had to shelve that. After that, I concentrated on writing and playing solo shows in small theatres, which I really enjoyed. And then after a bit of a break for about 10 or so years, I was in a game room one day with two other musicians. We were shooting the breeze and talking, and the main topic of conversation was none of us were actually doing anything, and why aren't we doing anything? So, since neither of us had anything to lose, we decided to team up and try and create a few tracks. And 18 months later, here we are with our first album, which we're immensely proud of, and it's been nothing but a complete pleasure.
And as for me, I started playing bass in 1993. I was 13. I was in my dad's band, which was country western, old rock and roll. After that, we also played some Motown, and then after that, it was my later teens. I was playing like heavy metal and rock music, and the popular stuff of the 90s. I was in an original band named Pharaoh. We moved to California, played a few shows out there in LA, and that band didn't work out. I ended up moving back to Pennsylvania. I've been in, original projects here and there since I moved back. I would even fill in for a cover band. A friend of mine had a cover band named No Apology, and I'd fill in, and they played like power pop and top 40 hits just less than 5 years ago. So I played all kinds of stuff and played all kinds of music. And like Dave said, when we were talking in the chat room, none of us were doing anything. It seemed like a great idea and a good challenge for me because it's a type of music I never played before. And here we are, and it's been great.
Lots of background experience you both bring to the table with Nova Cascade. And my next question for you both. All artists have a wide array of influences that inspire them in their craft and would love to perform with some of them if given the chance. My question for both of you is, if you could collaborate with anyone, who would that be and why?
The question is, who would I collaborate with and why? And that's a very good question. I'm very open-minded. I can collaborate with just about anybody. But if I had to pick someone that I would probably never be able to meet in real life, I'd probably have to pick Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins. I've seen an interview with him once, and he seems like he's a well-rounded musician. He's very, very smart. It would be very interesting, I think, to work with someone like him. He's just a genius, unlike so many others, but I think it would be really interesting to work with him because Smashing Pumpkins, their music isn't confined really to one genre. They move around a lot. It would be really great to collaborate with someone like him and write some cool stuff.
If I could collaborate with anybody, it would have to be Peter Hamill. I mean, there's probably lots of other musicians that I admire, but if I had to choose one above all else, just giving my album a plug there, if I had to choose anybody above all else, it would have to be Peter Hamill, one of the true pioneers of prog, and a pioneer in other areas as well. I think he was one of the first person to feature a Moog synthesizer on his albums in the 1970s. A true maverick of his art, a fantastic singer-songwriter, an intense performer. I've never seen an equal to him when it comes to a performer. It would be my thrill and my pleasure just to sit by his side and play a few chords on a piano and try and get some sort of insight into his mind and his creative process. We all need heroes, we all need inspirations, and he's mine.
Some interesting choices from both of you on that one. We're going to listen to two tracks from the upcoming excellent Nova Cascade debut album, and I'll let you do the honors of introducing that today for me.
The first two tracks that Bernie's going to play for you today is the title track of the album, which is called Above All Else, and that's followed by Epiphany, which features the amazing David Anania of the Blue Man Group on drums.
Nova Cascade, Above All Else, and Epiphany from the upcoming album by Nova Cascade on next Deep Friday. Two excellent tracks. For both of you, I asked this question of my guests because the answer varies with every single one. There are quite a few challenges being indie and lots of pros and cons associated with it. What are some of your biggest challenges you both have as an indie artist?
Being an indie artist, it definitely has its pros and cons. The positives or the pros would be that we don't have anyone breathing down our necks telling us what to do and when to do it and how to do it. You know, we can kind of do our own thing and create some cool stuff without being limited by someone else's idea of what we should be doing. So that's a good thing, but there's a lot of cons being an indie artist. Like, you don't get much exposure. There isn't a lot of advertising or marketing for your product. It's a very tough world out there when you don't have a big label backing you up. So there are there are even more cons than that. Too many to list, but there's just a couple. It's just a dog-eat-dog world out there.
It most certainly is, and lots of less seasoned artists have had to fold because of so many challenges to deal with, and just getting heard is a major obstacle, which leads me to my next question for you. If you could change one thing about the music industry today relating to indie artists, what would that be?
Well, there are so many things that can be changed. I think the one thing that would help indie artists out the most would be if the music industry, at least from an outsider's point of view, it seems as if the music industry has hard guarded walls all around their industry, and they don't really let anybody in. I think that if they shared more independent artists' material, that a lot of independent artists would have a lot more of a greater chance to be heard by more people. I think that's one of the biggest problems.
Okay, if I could change one thing about the music industry relating to indie artists, I would like to see more indie artists coming together to help each other out, to promote each other, using social media. Because I really miss the days of comradeship in music where there wasn't so much competition and bands were actively looking out for each other and sharing contacts and just taking time. It literally takes 2 seconds to post a link to a band on your Facebook page, and you could generate some sales there. Let's see some more of that. Let's get back to a time where it wasn't so much dog eat dog, as Dave just so eloquently said in one of his previous answers. But let's just get back to a time where musicians are actually helping each other and cooperating.
Totally agreed here, Dave, with you on that. Artists do need to support each other because you're all in the same boat, so to speak, and everyone supporting each other could be a very tremendous force within the industry. And we're going to listen to 2 more tracks from the Nova Cascade album, Above All Else, and once again, I'll let you intro those 2 tracks for us today.
Listening to are going to be Swept Away and 114.
Yesterday I fooled myself that all the dreams were real. Along the way we lose ourselves, we're swept away. We're swept away.
Swept Away and 114 by Nova Cascade on next Deep Friday with special guests Dave Hilborn and Dave Fick of Nova Cascade. This is really a terrific debut album and I can see it getting lots of attention. That being said, what's in the future plans for Nova Cascade?
So our plans for Nova Cascade, well, that depends largely on sales and feedback, really. The two main things that any band look for. If everything goes as it has been, I mean, I'm recording this interview now pre our album release, which comes out tomorrow. The reviews that we're seeing and the feedback we've had has been absolutely astonishing. So if that continues, then there's no reason why, you won't see Nova Cascade album part 2 and possibly even some live performances. A lot of people seem to think that just because there's 6 of us and we're spread out across a couple of different continents, that playing live isn't a possibility. But I would counter that by saying that, at least 3 members live in one country. And a few other members, including Dave, the bass player, have already, in all but agreed to come over here and play were the demand there. So it really is in the lap of the gods, you could say.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with Dave on that when he talks about demand. I mean, I could easily get some money together and fly on a plane just to come over there, but to go somewhere just to go there isn't really what I normally do. There would have to be enough of a demand to make us think that, doing such things would help us out even more than we're being helped out with, all these interviews and reviews we're getting for our album. But if the demand is there, it wouldn't be unconceivable to see us on a stage somewhere one day, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Demographics do give quite a challenge with band members being in different continents. Make sure and keep us up to date, though, on things, and wishing you every success with this album. And as usual, I'll have more info on that on my social media as things progress. Once again, I want to thank you for your time on this podcast. Make sure to follow Nova Cascade on social media so you don't miss any upcoming releases and news. Thanks for tuning in to this Deep Friday special with special guests Dave Hilborn and Dave Fick of Nova Cascade, and make sure to catch the other podcasts during the week for more great music. We're going to let you close things out for this Deep Friday, so take it away.
So our final track for you today is coincidentally the final track off our album, which we do hope that you consider buying because we've put a lot of love and effort into this in the last 18 months. There's a lot of ourselves in this record. I know a lot of artists say that, but in this case it's especially true. And this track is called Wilted.